YouTube, what the crap's going on? HeirofCarthage here. We're going to be taking on the Dwarves, which honestly shouldn't be all that difficult. It's pretty easy to get these guys right where you want them. They may have artillery and all that stuff too, but what we're going to do is we're going to grab a couple of outriders because the Dwarves have pretty much no answer to these cavalry whatsoever. In fact, I'm going to use them instead of crossbows. I'm going to get a few great swords because, again, the Dwarves have pretty much no answer to them in melee combat. I want a couple of good cavalry, so I'm going to get a couple of Empire Knights because they're cheap and I don't really need to go all out on demigriffs here. And then just for the sake of cost effectiveness, let's get a pretty big line of these spears so we can hold off any dwarf outflanking maneuvers. I don't even have a wizard or anything, or actually I probably will swap. Let's think though. So gyrocopters, Franz would be good at taking out gyrocopters. I don't have a great answer to the dwarf general with this army in particular, but we'll make it work. There we go. Let's throw a couple upgrades there. I'm ready to go. So if the dwarves have artillery or anything, we should be able to shoot them up early and harass their troops with our outriders. I keep getting this map. I've played on this map like 3 or 4 times. But in any case, it's not that bad of a map. This will hopefully help illustrate some of the challenges that the dwarves face. There's a lot of people who disagree with me in the last video I put. Well, some people disagree with me, some people don't. There's a lot of people who get so focused in on how I don't control my army very well sometimes, and they're like, yeah, that's the reason. No, the dwarves stink. They're really not a good online faction, and I'm not the only one who thinks this. I mean, usually a good way that you can see something like that is, you know, for players who are trying to play somewhat competitively, if you ever go take a look at the units and the factions that they pick, I promise you the dwarves are not among them. The only time I've seen it used successfully was when Panda Warrior was trying to counter the demigriff spam that Prussian Prince was using in a tournament, a no-rules tournament of all things. So I don't see the dwarves being a viable competitive type faction because they're going to get face rolled by the factions that just have so much more to offer. And again, since you don't have to worry about dwarves being able to outmaneuver you very easily, you can do stuff like I've got here where I already control the battlefield from the get-go. But let's just see what he has in terms of artillery before we get, you know, ultra hasty. Let's actually scoot this whole army over a little bit so it can advance better without getting caught on that rock face. Okay, there he is. He's camped out over here. Let's take a look at his army and see what, if any, artillery we're up against. An organ gun. He does have quarrelers. We can sneak these outriders up behind him from over here. I do need to be careful of the organ guns. They can cause significant damage, but we should be able to pretty easily counter it. I don't see his lord anywhere. What has he got? Dwarf warriors, great weapons on the flanks. His main line of longbeards would get wrecked by great swords, even with the hill advantage. His lord's right here. Let's take a look and see who it is. Just a regular dwarf lord. My outriders are still invisible behind that hill. But they are now... No, they're visible. So he can see me. Let's see if he turns his quarrelers to face me. Or his organ guns, for that matter. He hasn't turned either. I'm going to come up here and get some cheap shots real quick until he decides that he wants to counter this. And then let's keep moving up our mainline army. I'm going to push my Empire Knights up. He still hasn't returned fire. Or there, he just returned fire. So let's get out of here. So, quick distraction. I left my guys there too long and I ate a bunch of health damage, but we're good now. I don't think he'll be able to face his quarrelers in enough directions to effectively counter all these cavalry that I'm going to start throwing around his flanks. Let's get back from his organ gun with Franz. He's chasing my guys with his quarrelers like he gave an attack order or something. Or no, maybe he's just moving him to the... Yeah, he's just moving him to the flank. Just kind of keep ourselves back there to safe distance. He's not within range at this point. But my outriders are in range over here. Getting shots. Again, no return fire at the moment. This gives me time to get my infantry in place, so you can see what kind of predicament the dwarfs are in, and it's not a good one. I can just pull away from him, and honestly, I can just split up and make this even harder for him. Should be able to come around back there. His organ gun, I'm trying to get his organ gun exposed. Let's move up my infantry real quick. Keep my Empire Knights back. Yeah, his organ gun is busy trying to reform. We gotta stay back from his quarrelers here, potentially. I'm going to make an attack with my Empire Knights and my flying general here before the battle starts to tie down his quarrelers, keep them from being able to hit my greatswords. So let's get ready to do that. I'm going to swing around over here. Swing around there. Okay, he's firing at my outriders, which means he's not firing at my quarrelers. Which one of these gives me speed? This one. But it also gives me charge bonuses, so let's wait. Okay, I'm going to get into these quarrelers. Okay, and where's this stupid organ gun? It's right there. Okay, let's drop the stuff there. I'm not doing the best job here. I need to get my guys up and into combat. My outriders are kind of just firing away into him. My Empire Knights have distracted his whole back line and really wrecked on his guys. And my outriders just kind of standing back here firing away at him, while his quarrelers are left with little recourse. Okay, Franz is stuck in battle, but I mean he's pretty strong, and he's basically gotten their organ gun distracted long enough to bring my great swords in for some heroic victory here. How come I can't get an attack order there? Okay, I'm gonna spread out around the flank here. My Empire Knights got beat back. I'm going to put all my outriders on skirmish so they don't get caught by his infantry. Okay, I got my great swords in. Franz is taking a lot of damage, but I'm going to keep buffing my men here. Okay, I'm going to sacrifice one unit of outriders to silence these quarrelers, while the rest get back up in a shooting position. Empire Knights have come back from routing over there. My great swords ought to pretty easily tear apart his infantry. I got a spearman ready to get into his quarrelers, so I can pin his quarrelers with spearmen, so now he's in big trouble there. And again, these outriders are in a perfect position to just destroy this guy from behind. I'm going to save my knights. Franz is still alive, just like right in the middle of the melee here. Again, just ruin the organ gun. He can buff my men. It's going to take a lot of time and damage for the dwarves to try and successfully get rid of him. I'm going to actually give a rear charge right here real quick and just kind of keep firing right in here. Okay, all my men here getting buffs from Franz. Let's cycle out the cavalry for another charge and just kind of keep pooping on this dwarf infantry over here. Let's bring Franz out of that battle a little bit. Okay, Franz can get back in the air at this point, so let's get him safe from the dwarves. Do they have quarrelers left? Only a few, and a lot of them are caught up in melee. So again, you can kind of just see, I mean, just look at the trouble the dwarves have here. Their infantry just melts under my greatswords, and it's so easy for me to distract their guys as opposed to him being able to actually counter what I'm doing to him. Get over here, Franz. Take out those quarrelers real quick. Empire Knights can line up another rear charge, and again, my outriders are now free to just absolutely pepper his guys to death from behind. Great swords are far more than a match in melee than any dwarfen unit he can bring. So let's just take a look at this too. So poor dwarves are just going to get absolutely killed. Slayers are going to serve almost no purpose against the Empire unless you can somehow get them into demigryphs without being charged, which is unlikely. I mean, my great swords are going to just absolutely crap on these guys. So again, anybody thinking that dwarves aren't bad and that it was just the way I use them, yeah, okay, this player's not perfect, but even put them in the hands of a perfect player, sure, he's going to make them more contentious and better, but how can you really make them competitive against someone of equal strength? And the answer is you really can't. Not unless their artillery or their gyrocopters get to be considerably more useful. And you saw Franz here. I mean, Franz just landed right in the middle of their army, and there's not a whole lot they can do about it. Outriders here just firing at will the whole battle, just destroying dwarf morale. And then the stuff that Franz can do to boost his men here, I mean, the dwarves have this stand your ground too, but the attack on the Empire units and everything is just a better balance overall. And you can use that debuff there to the dwarf infantry. These iron breakers, tough unit, very tough unit, but overpriced for what they're going to deliver. They're going to break. The terror and stuff from Franz is going to get it done. Some of his quarrelers came back here, but it's going to be too little too late. I'll go ahead and shoot up some of those quarrelers, and then I'll just pull back with the guys here. So like I said, really no prayer. Some of the dwarf units have really good leadership. It is definitely something that's good for them, but it's not enough to save them because they don't have a lot of offensive options. And quarrelers are fairly good at dealing with, you know, missile cavalry if they can fire at them long enough, but then you get stuff like this where factions with faster moving stuff can do this. Now, had he brought gyrocopters, Karl Franz can get a hold of the gyrocopters as long as they're anywhere close to the battle. They can outrun him, kind of, but not entirely. But Franz is just fast enough to rip these guys up. And all you got to do is just tie down the dwarven army as a distraction, and then you're pretty much set. And I mean, he has a lot of guys left. I lost some great swords and other stuff here, but I mean, he's dead. This fight was over from the minute it started, really. Especially with these outriders behind his men, he is well and truly screwed. Okay, Franz drove the last of the quarrelers off the battlefield, so there is no more skirmishing contingent. I'm not even using all my units over here. A lot of them are just standing idle. There we go. So hopefully y'all enjoyed this and got a little bit of a feel like why I'm saying the things I am about the dwarves. They are definitely challenged, and not just vertically. Oh, that was a lame joke. I wanted to give you all some other advice here too. I mean, just look at the long swords here. They went into some pretty stout dwarf infantry. I mean, dwarf infantry in general is pretty stout. Iron breakers. I mean, this one got a pretty decent number of kills. It was probably against spearmen, and it took them the whole battle to do it. I mean, look at these longbeards. Crapped on. Dwarf warriors with great weapons, crapped on. Longbeards, crapped on. I mean, just longbeards, great weapons. It depends on what they were fighting. Slayers got more kills than I thought, so maybe they got into spearmen as well. But again, the organ gun, 0 kills. Quarrelers, 1 kill. You can just see the kind of damage that the Empire is able to do. And my spearmen, how long they held up all those fights. Like, it takes the dwarves forever to rout them. And you look at the damage that I can do with the Outriders and the Empire Knights, like how his quarrelers couldn't even assist as my great swords approached. And you'll see that all of my great swords survived the battle, as opposed to, you know, like so all of these are surviving units with pretty decent numbers of kills. So again, hopefully this illustrates it. Let me just give you one last piece of advice when it comes to quick battles. So that army I used right there, it's a decent, there could be better ones, but it's a decent counter to dwarves. You have an extremely annoying, fast-moving skirmish component that the dwarves are going to have a hard time dealing with. If they bring a lot of cannons or something, you can just spread your army out really wide to minimize the amount of damage they can do. So you can definitely give the dwarves a run for their money. And so one of the things you can do if you want to make quick battles faster is, like, let's say that you want to play with the Empire and your opponent picks the dwarves. So you just take the army that I just put together. I used Karl Franz. You could just use the Empire General, but I like that Franz has some extra abilities that can come in handy in a lot of melee like you get into with the dwarves. You're going to be into some melees versus the dwarves. It's not going to be as much magic fighting. Because the dwarves, really all they have is a runesmith. So here's the army I put together. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can get so many guys here. A couple of Empire Knights, and then I had... Now, some of you may wonder why I don't use the grenade launcher cavalry. They're just not as effective versus the dwarves. I find that these guys are a lot better because they have armor-piercing missiles. So I bring 4 of them, and then all I did was throw an upgrade on as many spears as possible at this point. So there you go. That's pretty much all there was to it. So I got Franz on his Griffin. And if you want to save the army, you just hit Save Army Setup, and I would say anti-dwarf, and it lets you know which faction the army was built with. See here, it says the Empire, and I'm going to say anti-dwarf great swords, because the main focus of this, I'll say great swords and outrider, or we'll say great swords and outrider, or I can't even fit OR outriders, OR outriders. So there we go. And so and you saw I had other armies here. Like, so let's say you're in quick battle and your opponent picks the vampires and readies up real quick, and you're the Empire. All you have to do is hit load army setup. Oh look, I've got an anti-vamp right here. I can just load that up real quick. Or I've got another anti-vamp with a witch hunter. I can just load that up real quick. So you want to get these type of armies. Like, so just go in, spend some time on the custom battle screen, build counter armies to each faction with a couple of variables in them, and then you'll be ready. So like, for instance, if I pick the Greenskins, which I haven't built anything, but I can have some builds ready. I can have an anti-Empire build. I can have an anti-Demigriff build. Not that there's really anything that can do that, but you can have an anti-Dwarf build. You can go ahead and set all that stuff up. It takes a little bit of time, but it's not too bad. And basically, you can be able to quickly get an army, and it'll help give you a leg up in quick battle where people are constantly readying up on you too early and trying to psych you out and all that other stuff. So that's my bit of advice. Hope you all enjoyed it. Leave your comments. Tell me what you think. I'll be back with more battles soon. HeirofCarthage, signing out.